Hello, everybody.
Hey, hey, hey. It's
I was just doing a sound check, make sure that the mic that mic was working and wasn't going to go robot on me. So,
yes, but it could at any time. It doesn't matter when you start off, right?
yeah, but at least, but the thing was is that one time it actually did happen, or the last time it happened, I didn't even know. It's like I went almost like half the show before somebody told, "Hey, Mike, you're roboting." So it was kind of like, oh boy.
Oh,
So I want to make
yeah,
sure that I'm not going to at least start off, with it,
yeah, I get you.
So, anyways, so Rick, how's your weekend?
It was good. Was at a Christian singles event Friday, Saturday, so that was pretty good. Um,
So you weren't actually on the live stream with Chris and Diana.
no, I listened to it partly last night and or most of it. I didn't listen to it. Probably, I think the first like 10 minutes. I skipped ahead to about the 10 or 11 minute mark, and then listened to the whole thing between yesterday and today. Find out what went on. you know, got to be
Who
nosy.
who who is all there?
Well, Diana, Chris, Mighty Geek Studios, and Rebellious Pastry.
Rebellious Pastry was there. So okay, so there was a new person there, huh?
Well, sort of. Rebellious has been around.
Oh wait, Rebellious Pastry, is that one girl who comes on your channel?
Yeah, although she's not coming on my channel too much at the moment. She's mad at me for almost doing what we just did.
Or what for what? What she mad at you about?
A few weeks ago on Lorenzo's channel, um, somehow it got onto her parents. She showed me her face, what she looks like once, and she has this dream or fantasy, or for lack of a better way of saying it, that she won't be confused for a girl. And I'm like, anybody that's gonna ever see you will confuse you with being anything but a girl.
Hmm.
And she did not like that too much. So
Oh wait,
she's
if I understand correctly, she's kind of somebody who looks at herself as kind of being
she
trans.
wants yeah, well, she's not transsexual or anything like that. She claims to be ace, which is the last time I knew, which means basically she's not interested in any romantic involvement type
She's
stuff.
asexual, is what you're saying.
Well, no, not asexual, just that she's not interested in any romantic relationship or whatever. She's
That's
just
what
not.
asexual means.
Oh, okay. Well, asexual. I thought just into themselves.
Well, more literally, it means without sex, but basically, people who identify. I just recently read up on this a little bit too because I just found out one of the voice actresses I know also classifies herself as asexual. Somebody who identifies as asexual means that they have no romantic interest or no like sexual desire in like anybody, man or
Yeah, yeah. I guess that's the best way you could say it. Really, you could think of Jughead like that in a lot of ways. And there'd be some other people too. Heck, the Apostle Paul in some ways. But we got to give these things, special names. That's
well,
more
it's
how.
just it's funny. People make a lot bigger deal out of it than it really is. So I mean,
Yeah. But
but
at the
anyways,
but to go on, pastry was, um, she just doesn't want to be referred to as a girl. She's chosen they them pronouns, which
Hmm.
technically they're these people in that community want to believe that there's more than two sets of pronouns when there's not, or
Yeah.
gender, and I'm
Well, I
you know
mean,
I will
you and I both know they're ultimately going to have to face God and answer to God about all that. So,
yeah, but
um,
me, I try to respect her, especially when I'm around her, and referring to her when I'm around her, not to use her to her, use the she and her when around her, just try to call her pastry or whatever.
yeah.
Um, you know, but I can't deny the fact that she's a she. I don't believe in the they them stuff, and I'm not
So
going
basically,
to.
she's upset at you because she doesn't feel that you're respecting her what she's chosen as her
Yeah,
gender identity,
yeah.
basically.
Well, I semi respect it. Like I said, I try not to call her she when she's around. But I just told her a straight fact of life from looking at her that no person is going to confuse her with being a guy. Nobody's not. They're not gonna. Somebody looks at you and they're not gonna think guy. They're going to think girl. I didn't quite say it that way, but and she didn't like that. She said that was a
Yeah.
transphobic. No, that's saying a
No,
reality.
I mean, what you do is you point to the fact, hey, look, when you look in the mirror in the morning, what do you see? Do you see, now granted,
Yeah,
it's probably not a discussion to be had with her, especially live, but, the point is,
yeah,
you make the point, when you look in the mirror in the morning, what do you see? Do you see breast or
yeah.
do you
But
see
and
more up top or more up on bottom? It's like,
yeah. And when this was said, yeah, it was live on air, but she brought up the topic. I just said it not in, a malice sort of way. And apologized to it for her hurt her feelings, but I'm going to tell the truth. But
well,
it's no different. And I
well,
said, it's no
well,
different than what I'd
yeah,
say
I
about
mean,
anybody else's appearance. Like, now this is just going to be an example. And whoever I say, you don't look, it'd be like me saying to you that you look like Charlie Brown, you know?
yeah, I
You
mean,
may not like that you look like Charlie Brown, but it doesn't stop you from looking like Charlie Brown.
well, if you mean Charlie Brown as in the persona that
The
Jimmy
Peanuts
Valiant
scare.
took back in the early '80s when he was he was kayfabe suspended from the Mid Atlantic area and then had to go around with a mask on. He had his full on beard. Then yeah, but if you mean the Peanuts character. I wouldn't be upset. I wouldn't be as upset about it. It would be more like, yeah, that's kind of wrong. I don't look like Charlie Brown.
Yeah,
I'm
I
not
was using
bald.
that. I was using that as an example. I'm not saying you do, but I couldn't. I can't
Yeah,
think of anybody that I know of that you look like. So
yeah.
I was just using an absurd.
Anyways, again, I just want to get more of the crust. I wasn't looking to get into a huge
Yeah, I know.
discussion over it. But I also heard you say something along the line, something about her parents.
Um, um, yeah. Well, she's talked about her parents before a little bit. I guess they support her on this. I know her grandmother goes to church, one of her grandmothers, but I shouldn't say too much more. I'm not sure how much she would want of this. I don't want to dox any information on her.
I get it. I'm not expecting you to dox, but
Yeah.
I just the way I don't know. You said something about her parents. I thought maybe I figured it was what you're either going to tell me that her parents were supportive of her gender identity or they were not supportive, and you also
Mm.
indicate that her grandmother may not because her grandmother may be more of a church going woman. In
Well,
which
unfortunately, I don't want to say much on air. Anyways, maybe we can
yeah
talk more about that off air later if
yeah
you want.
that's not even why we're here to discuss.
Yeah, yeah,
I
sure,
mean,
sure, sure.
granted, I would just The only reason it was just to kill some time. But now
Yeah,
we're like at the 10-minute mark. So why don't we um start getting into what we're really here for, right?
yeah.
No, let's get off the pastry topic there, as it were. Um, all right then. So anyways, let me just do some
How
more.
did the Mike? How did Friday go?
Okay, but we didn't really get a lot of viewers.
Well, I
It,
mean, what did you guys read and all that? Who was
yeah.
with you?
Let me just take care of something here real quick. And before I do get into that, let me also tell everybody, if you can like and help us out by liking and sharing, get some more friendly people in here, that'd be appreciated. Also, if anything we talk about here grabs your attention, feel free to comment and or ask questions. We'll try to answer the questions to the best of our ability. So with that out of the way, yeah. So what we of course, as you know, we're still working our way through September 1939. We focused on Fox feature publications. So we read, or I read, Tim did commentary. Um,
Oh,
read Wonder World Volume 1, Number 7, and Mystery Men Comics Volume 1, Number 4. The features we focused in on, of course, were The Flame, um, Patio Day, Green Mask, um, Blue
Patio
Beetle.
Days Green Mask.
No, Patio Day and Green Mask are two separate features.
I know, I know. I just
The
teasing
Flame
you.
and Patio Day were in Wonder World comics. Green Mask, Blue Beetle, and Zanzibar the Magician
Yeah.
were from Mystery Men comics. This is from Fox Feature Syndicate.
Yeah.
Some of course I'll wait for Tim to so he can give his
2 cents.
his 2 cents on it, but but
Patio Day.
basically,
The,
let's see. We had in the Blue Beetle story, we had Blue Beetle basically dealing with a racket of where a gang was trying to extort money from newsboys.
was this Blue Beetle still in that get up? Like not like a suit get up like he was the last time, or
No. By this point he had transitioned into more of a superhero. More of a he had the chainmail costume on that he was known for later. Basically,
oh,
I think it
okay.
was only for the first story or two where he utilized much like Sandman or
Yeah.
Crimson Avenger or Green Hornet at the time as well. I think by this story he had basically transitioned to more of a traditional superhero costume. But basically, he was dealing with a gang who was trying to extort money from newsboys. Um, let's see. In the Patio Day story, she was a newsreel reporter. She helped to she helped after a hydroplane was being sabotaged. She helped to get people to safety and all that. And got the pictures of the guys trying to mess with the stuff.
Yeah. But before you go on, Patio Day does seem like it would be a great secret identity for somebody named the Green Mask. The
Ah, that's where you're.
Irish.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Patio Dale was a newsreel reporter. In
Yeah.
other words, I guess in some respects you could say she was somewhat, had a very similar look to Lois Lane. She's
Yeah.
kind of a news but she was the lead character in the story, and then her cameraman was a guy named Ham.
Yeah. We've read it. I've read it with you
Okay.
before Patio Day. So,
Yeah. So
but yeah, for the audience, they need They might not have.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
then you read the Green Mask.
Yeah. And we also read Zanzibar. Zanzibar. Zanzibar was taking on a female crime boss, in which he actually turned her in. She actually turned her into like a living skeleton in the story.
Hmm.
You know, her name was Simone. She was kind of this crime boss, who was leading her gang to do, I think, bank robberies or something like that.
Yeah.
And he kind of turned her into a living skeleton. That was kind of funny.
Hey, Devil Flyer.
Hey, hey, Rex, how you doing, man? I gave you the link if you want to come in and join us. Rick was just asking me about what we read. Read
Friday.
over on Friday. What I read over, what Tim commented on. So, if you want to join us in the studio here, and talk, get in on the conversation, you can. So yeah, and thank you for dropping in, by the way, and liking and sharing. Let's see. Let's see now. I guess you just popped in for a second and left again.
Yeah.
Oh well. I do know Cromcom is going on too. So, but a lot of them were more run of the mill. Obviously you weren't dealing really with a lot of super villains at this point. In
Yeah.
any, the only real feature I know of them that kind of had, well, there were a couple of features that had maybe a couple. Well, actually, no, there were three. Okay, more I think about it, like DC had some recurring villains early on. Like Superman was dealing with the Ultra Humanite at the time. Zatara, had Tigress, and Tex Thompson had Gora. But for the most part, most of the other features were dealing with like hoods and with gangs and all that, the mafioso, that kind of thing,
Yeah.
organized crime. So that's basically what.
And so, who's up with you next Friday on
Yeah.
that?
Just give me one quick sec here. All right, I'll kind of share with over the next few weeks here. We do have a little bit of time. So this Friday, I have scheduled RJ will be joining me, and we'll be
Oh,
going over Lev Gleason. And we'll be introducing everybody to who Lev Gleason was, as RJ has reminded me on a few occasions. Of course, Lev Gleason is the company that gave us the original Daredevil, not Matt Murdock, not the Daredevil from Marvel Comics.
that should be interesting. That should be an interesting read.
Yeah. Well, Daredevil, he's not there yet. I don't think we'll be looking at Silver Streak Comics #1, but I don't think he was introduced yet. He wasn't introduced like off the bat,
Oh, okay.
But so
Any
this Friday,
idea?
RJ, and we're covering and then of course next Friday the 7th. That's when Metal is scheduled to join me, and we'll be finishing off our coverage of September
19th.
1939.
Yeah.
We'll actually be reading our readings will be from Quality Comics. So we'll be covering the companies we'll be covering will be Quality Comics, Standard Comics, and United Features. Now, thing is that now Standard, the only book that they were publishing at that time was called Best Books or Best Comics, but they didn't have #1. So we'll be going over their history a little bit now. Standard Comics, at this point in time, I think the company was called Better Books Publications, or Better Books Publishing, or something like that. but they're a company that would eventually become known as Nador, which I know Rex is seems to be a big fan of. Nedor, Nedor. So um,
Interesting.
you know, so we'll be kind of talking about their formative, their formative how they came into being. Then we'll be taking a quick peek at United Feature Syndicate's single series, Volume One, Number 10, where they were featuring Little Mary Mix-Up. Now, like there are a few of the companies that were doing this. I know United Features was doing it, Dell was doing it. Some of these comics were like singles. They called like I said, United Features called their version um, single series. Um, Dell called theirs like I think large feature another company was doing or not feature comics, but feature comics was quality, but that wasn't the same thing as what we're getting at here. You know, the feature comics actually where the clock is currently where we're at with our study, as it were, which we will be reading a little bit of that too. But this was their first foray into feature style. As you've seen, most of the stuff we've read thus far are more
Yeah.
anthology, right?
Yeah.
Um, even before Superman #1, companies were starting to experiment with the idea of of a feature type book. In other words, where instead of having a bunch of stories, a bunch of different like depending upon the story, anywhere between 7 and 14 stories with a bunch of different characters, like
Yeah.
an anthology. There were companies even before DC debuted, Superman #1, that were experimenting with the idea of
A full book based on one
one
character.
character, right? But the way they were doing it, instead of just doing it with one character and just doing it as a regular series, they would or do it as a regular series on a quarterly basis, right?
Yeah.
That's how a lot of those. That's how like Superman, Batman, a lot of those feature books actually got started. They got started, as quarterly titles coming out like 4 times a year, basically every quarter. Then,
Yeah.
as they got more popular, they would become,
Monthly.
bi-monthly and then monthly, eventually become monthly. You know,
Yeah.
anthologies were the only monthly books that were going at this point in time. Um, oh,
And that's because, like what, 80 pages at least or whatever.
it was like
Those
it's 64 pages, I believe. 64 to 60.
Yeah. That's a lot of pages,
I just
but still.
remembered something too, Rick. I forgot to do. Right now it's just you and me, and I was gonna probably wait till more people come. But um, why don't we go ahead? Why don't we go ahead here? Why don't you? I know we've already been talking to some people, but why don't you intro yourself a little bit here? And of course, feel free to share any links if you want in the chat and all that.
Yeah.
Do some promotion here.
Well, for those listening up to this point, I am Rick Piper of Cross Comics. As well, you might have been made aware by talking and the name up on my thing here with my cover for my second issue of Snowdrift. Uh, um, I do Christian comic books, and I've just um, got recently printed up my second and third books. I am now working on my next three books.
You're busy, aren't you?
Yeah, as well as doing projects for other people or
Yeah.
helping them out, which I'm getting paid for. Um, which will go into paying for me to do my projects.
Yeah.
uh, so um, and although you do have a couple more days, probably till Tuesday, to get in on the Canadian Shield 2 and Snowdrift 1 over on Indiegogo. So let me throw that link up there.
Yep.
Well,
Why don't you go ahead and do that in the chat and on YouTube? Then and then I'll of course highlight it for people to see.
Just gotta get it.
Ah, well, we got some. Hey, Metal's here. Hey, Metal.
Or am I?
Where are you? Well, you're below us on the screen there, of course, but
You're in between the two mics. One giving a thumbs up, one giving a thumbs down. Or is that thumbs up? I'm not sure. No, fist bump and a thumbs down. So I can't tell whether he likes you or not with that.
Yeah, but anyways, Rick was just asking me about I was just explaining to him like when I have you on the 7th, we'll be going over quality comics, standard comics, and thank you for the like and the share. Hopefully we can get some more people in the chat and get people involved. All right, so just trying to see if I got any. I went over kind of what we read from Friday, and then Rick was asking me what I have planned coming up for the next week or so. Of course, I just told him to just tell him everything. Are you guys still there?
Yeah, I'm still here.
You guys just kind of went dead on me there. It's like, okay, why are you talking?
Well, you were talking, so.
Okay. And of course we just promote. So Metal, would you like to introduce yourself and share any links to any of the stuff you're doing, whether it's projects you're working on or your channel or anything like that? Would you like to do all that?
Yeah, sure, I could do that. I go by the Metal. I am the creator of X Dynamis Chaos and the host of the Vomitorium Live. And you can basically find all my comics and stories at xdynamischaos.com, which I'll put in the chat.
Right. All right. So basically, what we're just kind of reviewing what's going on. So just a real quick wrap up from what we were talking about just before you came in. So this Friday, I have RJ Carter coming in. We'll be introducing everybody to Lev Gleason, and then when you come in next Friday, we're going to be covering 3 companies, but only because 2 of those companies don't actually have books to read. But we'll be doing like intro and summary work, standard comics, and features, and then what the books we will be reading from will be from Quality Comics, Feature Comics. I think Volume 1. I think it's issue 25, and there's of course a link to there's one of Metal's links right there. Is that to your website right there, or?
Yes, it's my website.
All right. So you might want to check that out, people. All right. So, and we'll be reading also from Smash Comics. We'll be reading Black X. And now, remind me, were you interested in reading along, or did you just want to do the commentary when you come on the 7th?
No, I said I can read along. That's no problem.
Okay. So after you, of course, on the 14th, that's when we start our coverage of October of 1939. And Rick, actually, I think that's when your next was the 14th.
Cool.
April 14th.
And that's DC, I believe.
Yeah, we'll be starting on we'll be doing DC. One of the stories we'll be reading is from Detective Comics 33, Batman, the Dirigible of Death, I believe is the name of the story. Part of the reason, of course, I'm choosing that one among them is because that's the one that has the flashback to Batman's origin in that story.
Mm.
Yeah. So So with it, also we'll be reading probably the Zatara story, maybe catch some Sandman, and depending upon time, maybe even some Hop Harrigan and Hop Harrigan and Squibbly as well. Depending upon how much time we have and how long it takes, not just to read them but commentary and all that. Then on the 21st, that's when I have Terry back with me, and we'll be, of course, going to continue our work through October of 1939. We'll be focusing in on Marvel comics then. One of the few occasions where I'll be doing this, I'll be going back to Marvel Comics #1 to read the Kazar origin story, and then we'll be getting caught up on with Marvel Mystery Comics #2, and I think that Daring Adventures, I think, was the name of the other comic. We'll of course look at those, and and then on the 28th, that's when I have Tim next back with me, and I believe it will probably be Archie. What I do know is that when we do start October of 1939, that's going to take about 10 weeks to go through all that material. We're coming out. Yeah, so because at least as far as I know, I don't think we might have one case where we're going to be covering two books. I'll have to double check that, but two companies. But usually if I'm doing more than one company, it's either because it's most likely, and there's Tim right there. Hey, Tim.
Hello, how's it going?
All right, let me
Good.
just.
Hey, Timmy.
So we're just going over everything that you're next. You'll probably be with me next on the 28th, April 28th, and
Right.
probably be doing Archie. But speaking of course, comics, and if you haven't already, if you can like and share the stream, see if we can get some more friendly people, that would help. And also to the chat, if anything we talk about grabs your attention, feel free to comment and or ask questions, and we'll go ahead and Tim, you got some guests in the background there.
No, it's just a dog barking in the living room.
That's what he meant. Your guess was a dog.
No, it's our dog.
Anyways, Tim,
guess.
would you like to introduce yourself? Share any links?
Well, not any links, but I am Timothy Olson, creator of Melvin. I'm actually working on the rough draft of Melvin 3 for Fund My Comic, which I plan to launch in July, hopefully.
Cool.
All right. So we were going over, and I was giving my take on what we read from Friday, Tim, a little while ago. We're waiting, of course, for you to come in. If you would like, Tim, why don't you share with everybody what your impressions were from what we read on Friday?
The material in the 30s was very limited to superheroes fighting mobsters, kind of tiptoeing around the war in Europe, not really addressing it, but they'll fight a South American dictator who looks a tad bit like Hitler, or there'll be a submarine that's obviously a Japanese submarine, but they won't call it a Japanese submarine. They'll say it's from a mysterious nation. Or they'll have a character called Slant Eyes who's just there for the Masked Marvel to beat up. Just obviously it's not really like perfected yet or anything, but it's the just what they had in comic books in the 30s was very limited to that kind of stuff.
Well, yeah, I mean, as you were even saying, as we get a little bit more into the 40s, they'll start doing that more. In fact, a little bit of a spoiler here for you guys. I do know because obviously I've read some of the stuff from Quality, as that was one of the properties that was picked up by DC. But initially, they actually came up with a bunch of different, like in Quality's world. Apparently, the Earth of Quality, the Earth of Quality comic apparently was a lot bigger than our Earth because you had all these different. You had a lot more countries apparently, but they were like one and done type situations. You might hear them mentioned and then never mentioned again, and after it became more apparent that
Well,
that
that's just like Marvel and DC with DC having all those fictional countries, and of course,
You mean like
they put-
Latveria or Wakanda or
that's
yeah,
Marvel, but
yeah,
the Lost, the Savage Lands or something?
yeah, that's for Marvel. But I was gonna get into stuff like that. DC also has whatever Black Adam's thing is.
Kondak. But
Kondak,
Kondak actually came later, I believe.
yeah. But they've got that. Plus, they've got Paradise Island. And there's probably a couple other things that I can't think of. There's lots of things that all these comic companies create for their worlds. I'll probably end up doing the same thing.
Actually, Tim, if you remember, granted, even though they all did have, some link to like gangs and stuff like that. One of the stories, if you remember the patio day story, that one actually had her, stopping or trying to stop some saboteurs, ending up helping, so they get pictures on that clipper. If you remember.
Yeah. They had like humorous non-superhero type stories. Yeah.
Yeah. So. Well, Rick, do you want to share? Do you want to share with Metal and Tim what you were telling me? What your the name about the name Patio Day?
Oh, because he was saying that I'm not sure whether you read the story, but there was the green mask. I thought Patio Day would make a great secret identity for a character named the Green Mask. Being Irish, Patio Day, the look of the Irish, the four-leaf clovers and all that. They're
What?
really associated with green Irish.
Gee, really? What's next? Mickey Rourke?
Oh boy. Okay.
Tadley O'Toole or something?
Yeah. Actually, there in Quality Comics, Will Eisner actually did write a character called Archie O'Toole, who was like the king of his own little country. As more of a humor strip, as it were, humor comic. So,
Any idea whether Patio Day and the Green Mask are in what's public domain?
Do you guys? What's your beef with the Irish?
I got no beef with the Irish.
I'm just teasing.
well,
Metal's awfully quiet. What'd you do to him?
Likely they are, because at least thus far, most of the characters that I'm reading, as far as I know, are public domain. It's only like maybe the DC, some of the more mainstream stuff that's still at like the DC stuff, Marvel. Most of these other characters that we're focusing in on, I think, are public. In fact, I know that some of the characters that were originally in Centaur comics, they actually were redone in the early '90s by Malibu. Like the Clock was brought back. A lot of those characters were kind of brought back. A lot of Will Eisner's characters were kind of brought back by Malibu. It seemed like.
Okay, yeah, Green Mask is in public domain. Both the Fox Feature Syndicate and the reprint from AC Comics.
Yeah. So, anyways, there were a few things that I talked about this week that were pretty interesting. I don't know if you guys know the name Al Jaffe.
Not me.
Yeah. Well, he's a 102-year-old comic artist who is probably most famous for having a feature in Mad Magazine. Bounding into Comics had done not Bounding into Comics, Bleeding Fool rather. Reprinted I guess interview or did an interview with him recently. That's all.
And Patty O'Day seems to be too public domain. Maybe I'll introduce him at some point in my comics.
If
They
you
make kind of
do,
green mask.
you have to spell the name properly, okay? Because I hated the way they used to spell it. It's spelled the Irish way, which I'll drop in the chat for you.
Oh,
That
That's
is
a
the
yes.
actual Day clan that the name O'Day comes from.
Yeah, well, if I do it that way, of course it's going to be public domain. Or not.
Yeah,
Combine
so,
two characters from Quality Comics.
all right. So here's one of here's one of the articles I came upon this past week that was pretty interesting. Here, I'll show that up. Don't know if I'll actually reread the whole thing, but try to key in on a few things. So, appreciating Mad Magazine's Al Jaffe at 102 years old by Avi Green. There he is right there. New York's Vulture section recently published a 2008 interview with Al Jaffe, famous for his satirical illustrations in the now defunct Mad Magazine, about his past career in parody, including the famous fold-in illustrations from the inner back covers of the monthly installment. Let's see. Originally intended as a one-time parody of Playboy's foldouts, Jaffe's recurring feature, which appeared in Mad from 1964 till its demise in 2019, so 55 years right there,
Nice.
became well, the dude's 102 now, so I mean, that's what 4 years ago. So he was 98 then, I guess. Let's see, yeah, about 98. Came almost as recognized and imitated as Alfred E. Newman's gap-toothed grin. Located in the magazine's inside back cover, it featured drawing that when folded vertically and inward, revealed a hidden picture and a surprise joke. But what made the quote-unquote fold-in so brilliant wasn't merely the concept, deceptively simple, and seemingly innocuous. It was a cachet of subversive satire. Judging from some of the references over the years, Jaffe had always trusted the intelligence of his audience. Unlike today, right?
Yeah.
Even when they were no more than pre or just pubescent kids looking for a quick laugh before bedtime or during math class, how else to explain the very adult punchlines like soaring profits in medical prescriptions or hiding the homeless problem? Or the gag in which an American bald eagle transformed into another, perhaps even more popular cultural icon, the Big Mac. So,
That would be an eagle burger, wouldn't it? Not a beef burger?
I guess so.
That burger would be really foul.
Yeah. Good joke there. Good joke there, Mr. Pun. So, let's see. I'm just, as I said, let's see now. I'm reading some of this just for back. It was one of the cleverest features they ever thought of, and he was right to trust in people's intellects to understand the concept Today's PC indoctrinated crowd unfortunately wouldn't. Would you argue that could be the case? That maybe people in the past were a little more smarter and more didn't get offended as much as the as today's.
Yeah. Well, today's people today just don't use the brain. They like it spelled out.
Yeah. Today, Jaffe turns 102, and to commemorate, Avi Green, who's the who I guess is the person writing the article here. I'm publishing for the first time online an extended version of the interview I conducted with him in 2008. So 15 years ago. So he would have been 87 at that point.
Yeah.
Before it was cut down for inclusion in my book. Jaffe is a link to another time, another world when humor magazine writers and illustrators were stars and sometimes even household names. More importantly, Al is a genius and mensch and deserves to be honored on this most celebratory of days. Definitely, I don't know of that many artists and writers the past century who reached over 100. So Jaffe's lucky he got that far, and he just turned 102. So I guess here's part of the interview, and some of this is pretty interesting because, especially when we're looking back on comics history and stuff like that, just think of some of the people. So if he just turned 102 here, that means he was born, I believe, in 1921. Okay, so keep that in mind. He was born probably in March of 1921 because this was done the other day. So
yeah.
So here's the first. Oh,
I just said wow.
So here's the first question I guess Avi asked him. What was your first comic book sale? How old were you? And this was Al's response here. I was 20. I went to see Will Eisner, who was the creator of a comic strip called The Spirit, which was beautifully drawn and very creative. The opening splash pages were all so brilliantly conceived. In the comic field, we all admired this strip tremendously. Will was a genius. He just did beautiful work. But think about this. This guy, now 20, so that would have meant, that should have been about 1941 then.
Yeah.
Based on what, it was around 41. So, and he got to work with Will Eisner. That must have been something, to glean from this guy. This guy, even though he went on to focus more on satire writing, he still was working in comics, and he's working with like Will Eisner among other people. And you're about to see some other interesting names here too. When we let's see, I had created a parody of Superman called Inferior Man, and I wanted to show it to Will. It seems so naive now, but it seemed like the right thing to do at the time. Let's see. And then the Green asked, "Was this the first parody of Superman? This would have been this would have been what, the early 40s. Superman had only been around for like based on our own knowledge about 3 years. At that time, there was another character who was called Stuperman. Get the pun there. You guys know what it means to be in a stupor, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So let's see. It was published by DC Comics. I don't know if mine was the first Superman takeoff, but it really doesn't matter. I came up with mine independently. Since then, I've seen a million takeoffs. But at the time, there weren't many. When I brought this idea to Will, I had no idea whether I was doing something stupid or not. But Will, who was only a few years older than I was already very successful. He hired me on the spot to do Inferior Man as a filler for his comic book. So wow. So think about this. This guy got to work with probably one of the legends of comic books. I mean, there's an award
Yeah.
named after him. After all,
Yeah. Well, the thing is, too, he wasn't like we see him now at that time. Like he said, the guy was just a couple years older than him. Had gotten some success already, so he wasn't. He wasn't. We see it as him seeing somebody revered, but he's just going up to somebody, another guy in the comic, you know, some guy in the comic book universe, or comic book industry, the budding comic book industry, trying to get a
right?
job.
Oh yeah, and that's something that Tim and I talked about the other day with some, as Tim was pointing out, some of the limit, how the earlier stories were limited because it was still a fairly new medium. I know. Oh, yeah, here's another part. I just skipped down to this. You were so Avi asked, you were working only on your Inferior Man comics, and this was Al's response. No, I was also making some extra money doing some penciling for a cartoonist who worked for Timely Comics, which later became Marvel Comics. After a while, though, I realized that I was being exploited. I was being paid $8 a week, so I became disillusioned and skipped the middleman and went to work directly for Timely Comics. Wow. Stan Lee, later the creator of Spider-Man, had just become the editor at Timely. He was about 17 years old, maybe. So wow, think about that. Stan Lee was like 17, 18.
Wow,
And
and
he was
editor.
already an editor at a comic book company. Now, Grant, we know as we talked, this is still the early days of comics, but
Yeah.
when you guys think of 18-year-old, what do you guys think of?
Not somebody who's running that sort of company, anyways.
Mm-hmm.
Although there are ones today still that run their own companies, a few here and there.
Well, with the advent of the internet, yeah. And look, I got a private chat. Let's see. Tim was saying, "Be right back." Metal, what do you think of when you think of 17, 18-year-olds?
Now,
Yeah.
I try not to.
you think aside from maybe some of them who are internet savvy, and many of them are, but you really see any of them being an editor for a publishing company?
No. Most 17 or 18-year-olds I know, especially now, are confused about their selves, let alone how to edit a book of any sort.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So again, different time, huh? Different time they were in back then.
Yeah.
That was,
Back then, these people probably already working for like
well, because they were
5
coming out of
years
the
at
Great
this point.
Depression too. They're, they had to be working. When I've read the Squibbly stories before, Squibbly was about 13 and a half in his features, and he was already making money as a cartoonist for his local paper. So we've talked a lot about that from that point. But anyways, and I went to see him at his office. He looked at a few of my samples, then handed me a script called Squat Car and said, quote, "Let's see what you can do with that. Go illustrate it," unquote. When I brought it back, he said, quote, "I don't have any more scripts for you to illustrate, but why don't you keep writing and drawing this one?" Unquote. And I did a lot of Squat Car Squad, which was a simple comic about two policemen But I had a great time with it. Now, one of the things I'll note, they again going back to Tim's point, how you did have some, let's say, stock type, features, or you had some stock type situations. The whole um, the whole idea of following the daily activities of two officers was also pretty common there. Jerry Siegel and Joe Shuster, of course, before they debuted Superman, and even while they were doing Superman, they did a comic feature called Radio Squad that followed Sandy Kuhn and Larry Trent.
Yeah. Although it would come later, there's Car 54. Where are you?
Mhm.
There's about two officers hijinks. Well, cop things seem to be
Well, yeah. I
popular.
mean, you think about it. Adam 12 is another example from
Yeah.
TV years later TV. Now here's another thing. So I'll read this next part here, because here's another thing that now I had come to know about this because, of course, just from my history segment. When I'm looking up the this day niche history segments and stuff like that. But here's a little interesting tidbit here. I'll get as soon as I get back to it here. Did you work on any other characters at Timely? After the war, I wrote and illustrated a teen character named Patsy Walker. Now, I know about Patsy Walker because I recently did, again, a history segment, this day in each history, in which I talked, and Patsy Walker was probably one of the more popular characters at Timely at that time as well, even though it wasn't a superhero title. It was more kind of, I guess, their take on Archie, I guess you could say, to a certain extent.
I'll be right back.
All right. I did this for about 5 years. I didn't create this character. A woman by the name of Ruth Atkinson did, but I worked on it. The American public goes through cycles, and the cycle at that time was teenage humor. So what he's saying is, at that point, when he started doing Patsy Walker after the war, people were starting to, like after the war in the late 40s, the superhero genre was starting to kind of die off a little bit. And so you did start, teenage humor was one of the genres that was maybe picking up a little bit, as well as Westerns. Sci-fi was still a little bit of a ways away, but let's see. And then I guess the author of the article was asking him, the idealized version of that carefree teen life wasn't the sort of lifestyle you and other comic artists were leading, I take it. And of course, Al replied, that's absolutely correct. We were coming out of an economic depression and then war. So I can understand that the reason for needing those type of stories. You're coming out, as they said, of the economic depression, the war, a lot of negative stuff. So of course, America is going to want to look to have their spirits uplifted. And so these kind of carefree teen life stories about these teenagers, like their days at the beach, or what other shenanigans they can get themselves into, really made probably for some interesting reading. Let's see. We were coming at, okay. Many of us were starting to get married and have families, so things were changing. But we were living fantasy lives through our work. We were creating these worlds in the comics that we wished our childhood could have been. Okay. That leads into a very interesting question for you comic book creators. Do you see yourself doing that with your works? Do you guys see kind of living a fantasy life through your works here?
Yes and no.
Yeah, I don't. Even though people would probably assume so reading some of my stuff, but no. If anything, it's just more of an exaggeration of what I already do to make it more entertaining.
What about you? You said yes or no, Rick?
Yeah, well, would I like to be a superhero? Sure. Bit of a fantasy there, but so I guess that's where the
Don't
yes is.
most people though? Don't most people want to live out a fantasy of being a superhero?
But at the same time, I'm well versed in reality and know it's not going to happen. So
It's not like Access is all of a sudden going to show up at your front doorstep and open up a portal and say, "Hey, Rick, here's a portal. You can go to any comic book universe you want to, including your own. Tell me where you want to go." It's not like that's going to happen, right?
yeah. Well,
But
well heck, or even just like Samson of the Bible, given super strength, if you will. You know.
hmm yeah. So anyway. Let's see. And I guess there's some more commentary here from the author here. And a sharp difference from today is that they were doing it foremost for entertainment value. And in real life, unlike today, you had a lot more respect for marriage between men and women, husband and wife, along with childbearing. Also notice Jaffe took the time to remind everyone that a woman was behind the creation of Patsy Walker in original incarnations, and it's impressive he was able to meet Lee early in his career, get a job from him. Yeah, would you guys agree with that statement? That last part of that statement.
Oh yeah. Well,
Um, as for humor, unfortunately, there's something that's becoming lost upon modern PC generations. Who cares more about the horror genre than the humor genre, which they regrettably now consider little more than an offense? Jaffe also told the following in the original interview about fellow cartoonist Dave Berg. Let's see.
I do think that's a generational thing, though. Like, it tends to go in cycles. If you go back through history, you can find like a bunch of fairy tales are basically just horror, but then also a bunch of Greek plays or comedies, and you can kind of see it reflecting in like how well the society is doing at the time.
Yeah. Well, I had heard of that. I had heard of that too. That some of those fairy tales were originally written more as horror stories.
they were very grim to begin with.
As in Grimm's fairy tales. Anyways. Okay, do you think Dave Berg's inner battle later expressed itself in his strip, The Lighter Side of? That was the question Avi had posted to Al. Here's Al's response to that. Came out in a lot of the things he did. He had a very moralistic personality. I mean, he moralized all the time. And his gags were very suburban middle class America.
What do you mean by moralize?
Moralized? Well, if he's moralistic, my guess is having strong morals, having a strong conscience.
Oh, you mean like maybe like squeaky?
Knowing, like right, being firm in your stance on what you believe is right and wrong. That might be what they're talking about when they say like moralistic.
Well, the very next sentence says that he was very religious.
Okay, so he did like really squeaky clean stories then. Nothing.
Well,
too
he
abrasive.
moralized all the time. Probably he was making sure everything had a moral in what he did.
Everything had a purpose.
Yeah.
Well, as Metal pointed out, and as I'll read here, plus he was very religious. He wrote a book called My Friend God, and of course, if you write a book like that, you just know that the mad staff is going to make fun of you. We would ask him questions like, quote, Dave, when did you and God become such good friends? Did you go to college together or what?
I would hope so.
Kind of a snarky response. But
Sort of like my trolls.
Well, I mean, that's an easy. You can easily think of a comeback.
Yeah.
You could say something like, "Why you want me to put in a good word for you?"
We do have parties, but it's not the kind you want to attend.
Yeah.
Drinking once per party, very quickly.
Yeah, you toast, but you don't get drunk, as it were. But anyways, so
I was talking about communion.
yeah. Okay. This is quite a difference from modern times, where many creators are totally secular and have no true respect for Judeo-Christianity or even Buddhism. Yet, when Islam is the issue, they won't slight. So, well, I didn't really know that they would put down Buddhism, but it is a pretty well known fact that modern mainstream entertainment just loves to take continual digs at Judeo-Christian.
Yeah. And the reason they won't do Islam, most of them, is because most of them are afraid that some Islamic extremist is going to come, slit their throat or whatever. Because it's happened in modern times.
Or bomb their house or something like that.
Yeah. Yeah, but anyways,
I make fun of Buddhism all the time, though.
What was that?
I make fun of Buddhism all the time, though.
Yeah.
It's a silly religion.
What are your thoughts on the future of comic book illustrators? For a humor writer, one would assume there will always be television or the movies, but illustrating for a comic book like Mad seems so specific a talent. Do you think it will survive? And then this is Al's response to the question. I think there are going to be some drastic changes as far as commercial artists are concerned. Even as you were speaking, I was picturing getting up in the morning, and a favorite comic strip is on a panel, and it rolls by, and it's animated. Interesting how they're talking about this, because one of the other stories that he did this week that I'll probably show you guys too is that over in Japan they had the first AI generated manga published. That's another article in this from Bleeding Cool here that I'll probably show you guys as well. But anyways, getting back to this one. No longer will it be quote unquote peanuts with 4 panels and static little figures. Now it will feature characters walking or kicking a football right in front of you. Well, or missing kicking a football if you know the actual strip, if you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah. Trying to kick a football?
Yeah, the idea. Until the girl, like at the last second, pulls it right out, and you fly, and all your clothes fly off. Right? All on a sheet of something that is no longer than a page.
Bigger than a page.
Huh?
It says bigger than a page, not longer than a page.
Oh, no bigger than a page. All of that is bound to come. Truthfully, I don't know what we're going to gain or what we're going to lose. Of course, you both gain and lose from the advance of knowledge and technology, but humor, I don't think any race of people can survive without it. Well, everybody needs to laugh. Everybody needs to have a good laugh once in a while.
Yeah. Humor makes merry as a good medicine.
Well, I think there have even been studies done that the more people laugh, the healthier they end up being.
Yeah.
I think there
Well,
have actually been scientific
yeah.
studies that they've studied that.
To a limit.
Yeah.
Well, they say God has a sense of humor, and sometimes we're the biggest jokes around.
Yeah. Well,
Well, I was
yes,
just I was trying. I think I was quoting a proverb. About laughter being a good medicine. I can't remember it word for word. So
well,
anyway.
I remember another saying. I don't know if it's a proverb or not, but man plans, God laughs.
Yeah. You want to make God laugh? Tell him your plans.
Yeah. Oh, so that's what you think, huh? Okay. Oh boy. So, anyways, getting back to there definitely have been all sorts of changes, and not for the better, as far as humor is concerned. If you consider how it's been dumbed down for the sake of perpetually offended SJWs, even Mad themselves may have finally succumbed to the end of succumbed in the end to PC mentality, which precipitated its demise. Now, remember, they said until its demise in 2019. What was going on in 2019? You guys remember? What was
Uh,
I was kind of really even it accelerated even after Trump got elected, but that was basically the whole Me Too, SJWs were really taken off. It's like,
No, I mean that kind of started in
every
2016, but that is kind of when it accelerated.
huh?
I said that kind of started in 2016, but I guess that is kind of when it accelerated.
Right.
Yeah, it shows that people weren't paying attention. Me Too did actually kind of destroy itself when wasn't one of like the high-ranking member of that movement caught having relations with a minor.
Well, I don't know as much about that, but I know there was some controversy with the BLM movement, where some of their leaders were taking more money and like living the good life, while the rest
Yeah,
of
and
the foot soldiers were.
you really you don't really hear from them much either. I mean, but you really don't hear from the Me Too movement anymore. That's dead and kaput.
Yeah. Well, here and there you do, but there are some slight references here and there. But you're right; they don't seem quite as like they'll come out in droves when like the Million Mom March kind of thing.
I think everyone kind of forgot the whole holla back thing where they're trying to take on catcalling. That didn't go anywhere.
Holler back. What's that? I haven't.
There was
This
this movement in New York where this woman walked around for 8 hours, and it was supposedly they filmed men catcalling and saying all kinds of stuff, and really none of it was really anything.
Yeah, I think one of them literally just said, "Have a nice day."
Yeah. But like, where's that? That went nowhere.
Yeah. Yeah. Sometimes with that kind of stuff, you just got to take it in stride. It's like not much you can really do about it. I mean, unless the guy's gonna then try to physically accost you, then yeah, you do something. You knee him in the nether region and run. But if he's just whistling at you or catcalling you, not
There's
really
also
much you can do about it. Just go about your business. Just
there's
if you react to it, they get a prize basically.
there's the extreme irony of feminists coming out saying they miss being catcalled.
Yeah. Okay. So, anyways, there's only so much being lost to social justice propaganda nowadays. And while Jaffe's respect for animation as a medium is admirable, that too is becoming a lost art. Maybe, well, yeah, I've heard particularly Yellow Flash on several occasions really be full on critical of what I think they call Cal Arts, which I'm not really sure what that is, but from what I understand, Cal Arts is not really considered that great of an art medium.
That'd be the Steven Universe type.
I call it bean mouth instead, because technically all of the art styles that we know of throughout like the history of Hanna-Barbera, Cartoon Network, and stuff like that, have come out of Cal Arts. Well, it comes out of two places: California Art Institute, which is Cal Arts, and the Savannah. God, I'm trying to remember the South Georgia one. That's famous for animation and stuff like that. I don't know why it's in Savannah, but those are the two schools that all major like art programs churn out that end up in the industry because they network and they know each other. So technically, like Johnny Bravo was a Cal Art style, and people have just been using it to talk about this recent one. I think bean mouth is a better term because everybody's mouth looks like a bean in those styles.
All right, that's an interesting take on it. Let's see. Where were we? Oh yeah. And while Jaffe's respect for okay, we read that part. Let's see. That too is becoming a lot. Okay, yeah. Maybe even well before it could be considered a valid art form. Let's also remember that for many years, very few USA Canadian animators tried establishing a marketplace for adults. Yeah, I mean, well, I don't know if you can, there weren't a whole lot. I mean, as I think I mentioned recently, about a month or so ago, the Flintstones was originally considered more towards adults, even though it's rated G nowadays. But if you're talking about like really, really adult, yeah, that probably didn't start.
So the Flintstones are geared at adults?
Huh?
I said the Flintstones were geared at adults. And follow-up question: how?
Probably because it played in prime time.
Yeah, it originally debuted in prime time. Back
like
in
a sitcom.
1960, it originally debuted in prime time. That's why it was considered geared more towards adults.
Did it cover adult topics, or was it just because it was in prime time?
Well, I'll put it to you this way. About a month ago, Pebbles turned 60 years old.
Yeah, but having a kid, I wouldn't say necessarily would do that. But then again, you got to consider the stuff of the day too. When the Flintstone came out, what was on air?
Were they using a lot of crude jokes on the Flintstones? No. Were they?
Nobody was.
Were they
really.
outright depicting like sexual acts in the show? Of course not.
Were they smoking or drinking?
They were drinking sometimes.
Sometimes, yeah, because they'd show them go. They'd show them going out. Like friend Barney would go out bowling.
And there's the loyal order of the Water
friend
Buffalo.
Barney would take the girls out to dinner. You'd have some social drinking going on there. But one of the points I was trying to make here was that they did talk about, it's like basically in a matter of like 3 weeks between episodes where this happened, where in one episode, okay, Wilma announces she's pregnant, and then something like 3 weeks later, in show, well, not okay. Broadcast wise, 3 weeks later, not in their universe, but
yeah, it was supposed to have been 9 months between the episodes.
Yeah, in the universe, right? In their universe.
Yeah.
I believe it was February 22nd, 1963. The episode "The Blessed Event" premiered on I believe it was ABC, was where Flintstones was originally aired, in which they depicted Pebbles being born in that episode. So,
I mean, another thing is
not graphically, just
it's just a caveman parody of the Honeymooners. Like you can literally just say that. It covers many of the same topics, just put in that situation. You cover in-laws, which kids don't care about. You cover work troubles, like everything about it. It's just an adult sitcom, but animated.
Yeah, right. So it's just a blue collar comedy, pretty much. But prehistoric.
And Jackie Gleason, who was the star of the Honeymooners, also voiced Fred Flintstone.
No, he didn't.
He didn't?
No, it was Alan. It was Alan Reed who voiced Fred Flintstone originally, and then in the 70s, after Alan Reed had passed away, Henry Corden had taken over
Okay,
Or,
for some
Correct
reason,
me if I'm wrong. Correct me if I'm wrong, but doing voice acting in those days was considered a step down for most actors.
it's
well,
still considered that way today. I
some people
think.
would argue it's a step down today for being a live action actor.
I think you were slightly more respected back then than you are now as a voice actor. It was different, definitely. It was still not as high as being like somebody on the silver screen or whatever. But from what I've read, mostly voice actors weren't seen that much different than normal TV actors. There was just always a distinguishing between TV and film actors. Now there's not much of a distinguish between TV and film actors, and voice actors are like a rung below live actors.
So yeah, so let's see. Let me see where what. Oh, let's also remember that. Okay, yeah, we read that part.
U.S. Canadian animators.
Yeah, establishing a marketplace for adults, and in the recent decades, it's only considered useful for left-wing political indoctrination. Now, of course, when we think of adult animation today or mature animation today, of course, um,
Ren and Stimpy.
well, yeah,
South
Ren
Park.
and Stimpy, even The Simpsons, a lot of Matt Groening's work, The Simpsons, Family
Yeah,
Guy,
one time The
American
Simpsons,
Dad,
but well,
Futurama,
yeah,
and even some of the MTV stuff like Beavis and Butthead and Daria as well. Um, so let's see, and there's some mad artwork for you. Jaffrey did a lot of good for cartooning in his time as a satirist. Um, and that's why it's sad there's unlikely to be many in the future who will appreciate his contributions. Yeah. So that's that one. And now there's another one that we can go to that I think also, going back to one of the points we were making in the we have at least 3 people in the chat now. So if you haven't already, to remind everybody, if you haven't already, if you can like and share the stream, see if we can get some more friendly people in here. Also, if anything we talk about grabs your attention, feel free to comment and or ask questions, and we will try to answer the questions to the best of our ability. Yeah, we're already coming up on an hour and a half, so this might end up being the last article here because we're already at an hour and a half. That one took quite a while. But there's one other one that kind of, in some respects, I could link to some of the stuff we were just talking about here, and it's this one right here. And this one was actually done by Avi Green again. Should Japan's first AI generated manga be considered art?
No, I'll just
Nope.
answer it right there.
It's called cheating.
Well, it's not even cheating. I'll explain later. You can read your thing.
No, I know.
Well, let's see what they say, and then you guys can give a counter if you wish to what they're saying. All right. CNN has a story about a mangaka. Now, mangaka is the Japanese term for comic book creator, just for those who don't know.
It basically just means one who mangas, right? Mangaka
Right.
is a manga person.
Right. In Japan, who's produced a story illustrated with artificial intelligence. In his latest comic, Cyberpunk Peach John, manga author Rootport imagines the Japanese folklore hero Momotaro. And we're going to be talking a little bit about Momotaro a little later, too, just to give you guys a heads up. I'll be in the history segment. Who is said to have been born from a giant peach living in a dystopian future. But while the writer created the storyline and dialogue, his sci-fi inspired imagery was produced entirely by artificial intelligence. In fact, the 37-year-old has never drawn a comic by hand. The publishing house behind the work, Chinchocha, believes that Cyberpunk Peach John is the world's first complete AI manga work. On sale in Japan from Thursday, it was illustrated using Midjourney, an online image generator that can produce detailed pictures based on users' prompts. Now, we've also heard of other AI generated art programs, like one of the other ones we were talking about recently was Gabby, right?
Yeah, I
Gab,
tried that. That wasn't too good.
yeah. So good.
I'd like to try this Mid-Journey one. I'd like to know what he had to put in to get his art.
I
Because
believe Midjourney is still only accessible through the Discord.
okay,
So you have to
Good.
join the group Discord.
Yeah. Good for him, but this shouldn't be the future of manga any more than Western comics, which I would believe that everybody here probably agrees with that statement.
yeah, probably.
Yeah. Mainly because for all its advantages, AI still has some considerable disadvantages. AI imaging tools also infamously struggle to accurately render human hands, which often appear with too many or too few fingers. For this reason, Rootport said he made a quote significant compromise unquote by limiting scenes that picture characters' hands. Quote, hands were difficult to draw, and details tended to appear as if they were melting, unquote. He said, when I read this line, when I read that line,
They're melting.
what it actually reminded me? It actually reminded me, believe it or not, of a Captain Marvel story that I once, read through from Wiz Comics back in the 40s, where in the where they act, and this was actually this, thinking about comics and the artwork and some of it and stuff like that, but for the 40s, this would have been considered pretty horrific, to be reading on some of these pages. But there was in one of the Captain Marvel story, you had at one point where I think it was Dr. Sivana who had created some kind of ray that I don't know if he had increased the power of the sun or something like that, but basically it was to a point to where people were literally melting, and they were really depicting it in the artwork. Okay, there was a point where even Billy Bergman could not properly say Shazam because his mouth. I mean, they were really depicting it. It was actually quite horrific when you see it, and we might hit upon it at some point down the road when we get there. But I guess this is some of the AI artwork.
Yeah.
See, this proves AI. Oh, go ahead, Rick.
With looking at this, you're just getting ladies' legs or faces.
Well, I think
bunch of
he
head
said that
shots.
he was limiting the hand shot. I mean,
Yeah. Well, no, I guess what I'm commenting on is there doesn't seem. I don't know what type of story this is. Obviously, it's not superhero type stuff, at least from within these pages. So what he's getting it to do is very limited in what it can do. I don't think. Yeah,
I
he
think
did that
that's
stuff.
the whole point of what the author is saying here is that to a certain extent, to rely on AI generated art is limiting. I think that's I think that's the very point that that the author of this article is pointing, that Avi here is pointing out.
Yeah.
I think Avi's point here is that AI art is limited in what
For
it can
now.
do.
Yeah. With this stuff, I don't think it could create any of, like, I don't think it could create Melvin, Metal's universe, the X Dynamis universe.
I don't
And
think it should be a thing because it's some people actually have a gift and they work hard to get there,
yeah,
and then some a-hole comes along and uses a computer.
yeah, but you've got, I've
There's so many
exper-
problems with that
uh,
statement.
I've
Explain.
I've experimented with it a little bit in the past couple of weeks because I want to be a little bit informed on how it works, and
Well,
you
well,
to get
and
anything
So
close
you're
to
going to
what you would.
endorse cheating then?
I'm
yeah,
not.
Clearly.
It's not
okay.
cheating. It's
All right,
just a tool.
guys, I want to point something out too. There is a reason why they're pushing this over in Japan in particular. And Metal, you might know and understand this better than any of us because I think you've read probably more. Or you may know a little bit more about the anime and manga industry than you and I probably know more about the manga and anime industry than. But there's a reason why they're pushing the idea of AI as potentially the future, and we'll get to that. But anyway, see, that proves AI can't and shouldn't be the answer to everything. If you can't feature as many hands as you'd like, it's clear something's wrong. Yet the writer insists. Fruitport, however, believes that AI technology will ultimately liberate, quote unquote, grueling process of creating manga, which he said often details onerous deadlines that see artists suffering ill health due to overworking. Tools like Midjourney could, he argued, improve the industry's quote unquote inhumane working conditions. Quote, it would not only make things easier for manga creators, but also has the potential to improve the quality of the stories themselves, unquote, he said. Now, let me point that out again. That is a significant problem in the anime and manga industry.
Oh, it's horrible. There.
Yeah, the working
Yeah.
conditions. I know Hirohei talks about this a lot. I've heard it from many sources.
Yeah,
Where
that
it's I mean,
Is
I've actually
that what you're
literally
getting
heard.
at, Metal?
No. Well, I mean, there is more to that, but that
You
is
were
a
saying there's
problem.
something wrong with my statement, and I strongly believe that for making a comic book, it's cheating.
Well, then I strongly believe most of what everybody would do is cheating in a comic book now.
Yeah, is digitally
How
coloring?
so?
Is digital coloring cheating?
You're still using your hands to make it.
Yeah, but it's not like the
AI
same.
computer is doing most of the work for you in AI
Uh,
art.
yeah, I wouldn't say that entirely. Yeah, it's doing a lot of the artwork, but if you go to one of these and type in some stuff and try and get an exact image that you like, I did it. Tried to get the Canadian Shield. Now, I didn't try it for long, 10, 15 minutes. I couldn't get it to produce anything that would come close to looking like the Canadian Shield. My Canadian Shield, anyways.
Yeah, and let me just put a
And that's just one, just trying to get it to do the character. Forget the background behind it.
yeah. Let me
I do
also
apologize, Metal.
let me add something here. Just again for further context here. I know of a couple of well-known mangakas,
Sorry.
okay, who have well, I don't know, again, that's a good debate to have of whether or not it's cheating, but take
Yeah,
this also into account when when you're thinking about that or making statements like that, is that
AI art also takes
I
images
know a
from
couple
stuff
of
off the
mangakas.
internet.
I know of a couple of mangakas who've actually had to take multiple lengthy hiatuses
yeah,
because they were just in so much pain. You know,
yeah,
I know one mangaka who talked about how even going to the bathroom for him was um,
Yeah,
was real hard because his hips had been so down, I guess, from all that sitting or whatever. I think Kohei Horikoshi, who
yeah,
another guy who's I know of like 2 or 3 mangas who've had like because of the workload that many of these mangakas have had to endure.
yeah.
Have
But
caused
see,
Holder in particular serious health problems. So
well, I'm neither for or against the AI art at this point. Um, that's a different thing, why don't get the creators all together and try and discuss this, do some pushback against, the quote unquote magazines, because it's the magazines that are making all this pressure. It's And nobody refuses to stand up against it, you know, to do something. The AI art isn't going to solve that problem. It's going to make it worse.
Yeah, it's going to be like the cotton gin all over again.
the what?
The cotton gin, where in its invention, it thought it was going to actually alleviate the need for slavery, but all it did was make production so like fast that they were able to double down and just work people even harder.
Yeah. And I didn't quite catch your last statement, Tim.
Oh, I was apologizing. I was getting kind of annoyed with the whole. People make excuses for AI art, and I just don't. I'm just not having it.
Yeah.
Well,
I
I don't think
say,
it's art. That's the difference. I don't have. I have a very, very particular perspective on this, probably compared to most people in general. But I somewhat agree with you, Tim, that I think art is a discipline that somebody has to practice. I really don't care if somebody's doing it with their hands or not, especially just looking at the history of art throughout all of human recordings. But the bigger thing is probably have no idea how much cheating goes on in modern comics, especially in manga, particularly. If you go into the production, how many reused assets are used, how many stamps, how many 3D assets are flattened and put in there that are just most cars that you see in manga are 3D models with a stroke around it that have been flattened and whitened out and just rotated at the certain angle.
yeah. I want to make something absolutely clear here, just so everybody here on the panel understands this. I am neither advocating nor denouncing AI generated art. I'm just presenting the story as is.
yeah,
I'm giving my interpretation on some of it, but I'm leaving more the commentary, the opinions to you guys, because
yeah,
you guys are obviously the artists. You
yeah,
guys, I welcome the debate you guys have on that. I like seeing you guys go back and
yeah,
forth. Not because I'm just being some jerk off who wants to have this big hyper storm going on, but just
yeah.
to get people to think and get people to interact.
Yeah. What I'm talking about, or part of what I was talking about, is we were having this discussion a few weeks ago over on Lorenzo's thing, and I made the comment that none of us had really went and checked it out to see what it actually is. We're just going by whatever we see, hear, or think. So I
Right.
went and tried a few programs. Now
Yeah.
I only did it for 10, 15 minutes, maybe half an hour. I'll admit
Mhm.
that. But with what I put in and all that, like I didn't think it would. It's nice to produce some good looking pictures, but at the same time, it didn't um, do anything close to what I wanted. And I was just trying to get it to make a picture of the Canadian Shield.
Right. Well, I just wanted to make sure that we because Tim, you seem to be getting a little annoyed by it, and I just wanted to make sure
Yeah.
you understood. We're not.
Uh,
I'm neither advocating nor denouncing it. I'm
yeah.
just presenting the.
No, I personally wouldn't even use it.
Yeah. I'm not going to go use it, but I would just, if to try and get a objective opinion on it, for lack of a better way of saying it, I
Mhm.
say just go, Google a few sites, go try it. I think if you really wanted the pictures that you want, you have to become an extremely good writer. extremely
Okay.
good prompter.
Anyways, but before we get back to the story, Tim, I noticed you put something up, so that's why I decided to share your screen. You want to give us a little talk? Tell us what you put up here and why and all that. Oh wait, is this your campaign?
Yeah, it is. We can't hear him. Tim, are you talking? Are you there?
Thank you. Okay, so this is the rough draft for Melvin 3 for Fund My Comic Book, Fund My Comic. I just wanted to see if I could get you guys' opinion here. See that I put up some images. I just want to see it. Does that look good right there?
Yeah, look.
Yeah,
To
it's
me, it
looking
looks
good.
fine. I'm no art expert, obviously, but it looks
Yeah.
fine to me.
Yeah, it looks it like, and you're probably trying for that a very
Yeah, see,
Star Warsy feel.
you hit preview mode, and so you can take a. This is what it looks like in preview mode. Yeah. So, stop sharing screen there. I just wanted to get your guys' opinion.
Yeah.
All right, that's cool. I'm sorry. I'm sorry it took us that long to get to you on that.
Yeah, and of course, we're all welcome to have our opinions on this stuff. No
Right.
matter
Oh yeah,
what
I
way
know. Yeah, I
on
know.
I just I heard Tim was saying he was getting a little annoyed with it, and that's why I wanted to just clarify that.
Well, there's individuals that are making excuses for it, because everyone has to jump on the bandwagon, or you got these people who it's like, how more lazy as a society do we have to get before we have no purpose anymore?
Right, and on that I would agree with you. As I said, I'm neither advocating nor denouncing it. I'm just simply presenting it.
Oh no, I think it's a golden opportunity.
For the sake of conversation and for the sake of just just having a good conversation about it and expressing our different views and opinions and going the back and forth for just that intellectual stimulation. So
wait, hear me out. I'm gonna explain to you, Tim, why this is actually a good thing, right? Why this is a golden opportunity. See, any time in history when things hit the point to where it's automated and mass produced, what that does is drive up the value of artisan work. So anybody who continues to make comics in a way that actually requires humans to do all the work will then make those comics artisan comics, or any other type of illustrative work or anything that's being taken over, which means you can increase the price of it too, due to the demand of artisan work.
Yeah, it's like handmade furniture versus factory made furniture.
Yeah, when I think, and I think I get the point you guys are making. Basically, when no matter what it is, whether it's like comic art or painting or even culinary art, if they know that a human put their heart and soul into it, it has more value than just being able to punch a few keys on a computer screen to get it. Maybe doing art on an AI generator may for at least briefly have some fun to it, but it's still probably most people are still not going to consider it art because you take the human element out of it, it's not really art anymore.
Yeah. Well, heck, in some ways, it's almost a continuation of the whatever the art the digital art that you would sell, the NPCs, not NPCs. I think you know what I'm talking about.
NFTs.
Yeah, NFTs.
NFTs.
Yeah. Like you make a digital piece of art and you're selling it for hundreds of thousands of dollars. Well, you just go over to the AI art, get it, produce it, and put it up.
Yeah. So, anyways, let's kind of try to get this. Let's see. Okay, so we read that part. Let's see. Okay, so this is what the author of the article said in response to what we just read there. No, that's disputable. Besides, even comic strip cartoonists in the USA have had problems with illness that's forced them to take time off from their work. Plus, wouldn't shifting more to AI mean less responsibility in taking the challenge of being an artist yourself? Well, my art friends, my comic book creator friends here, how would you answer that question that I just posed?
Well, again, I think practicing an art is practicing a discipline. So you can use an AI to take some shortcuts and stuff like that, but you're not really practicing a discipline during it.
Yeah.
I don't think that matters to the commercial world. I don't think it will ever matter to the commercial world. That's a personal thing, right?
Yeah, you
And that goes
definitely
back
don't become
towards
an you
virtue
definitely don't be
ethics.
you definitely don't become an artist by using this stuff. You become a writer, for lack of a better, a
Or
writer,
you're,
a
you're kind of a
prompter.
machinist in a way.
Yeah,
Yeah. Well, because again, as I pointed out earlier, you gotta for creativity to be creativity, you need that human element. That's the only place where creativity can really come from is that human element. Because humans, unlike machines, can experience emotions. A computer can't experience an emotion. A computer
no,
can't get angry. A computer can't um, cry, but a
but a
human
computer
can.
can cheat.
But we all say this for now. We don't know where things are going. That's when people are like, oh, but they suck at making hands. Yeah, but what happens when they get better? Back when digital art started, everything sucked until Coral Painter was made, and then people could actually stroke like paintings like they could on an actual canvas. Like things progress over time. Who knows what's going to happen?
Yeah,
So
I just
anyway,
think it's years away at least from this stuff being any decently good. So
exactly why AI shouldn't be viewed as a complete alternative or replacement for human art. Because then humans won't learn how to do certain things themselves. So
I also
humans
think
don't want to.
if you are an artist, right? If you have the perspective of an artist, you have that eye that you develop doing art, you will also be able to use the prompters better because you will be able to tell what actually looks good when it comes out. I've seen a lot of this really, really poorly chosen sets of results from people who aren't artists. And you're like, oh, I could tell that was done by the AI. I could tell that was done by the AI. But then you could see ones where an artist was actually fine tuning it, and he knows what looks good because he spent all that time developing those skills. And it's hard to tell whether was that done by an artist or a computer because that looks correct otherwise.
yeah. And I guess the author of this art, Avi, finished the article off with this statement, and you guys can comment on this if you wish. And I thought it was lazy enough if some car and truck drivers preferred automatic transmission to manual. What do you guys think of that comparison?
I don't think it's lazy. I think it's worse. If you can do manual, you're definitely a more skilled driver.
Yeah. So, anyways, we're at an hour 48, so I think it'd be a good time to start winding down a little bit. What do you guys think of what we covered tonight?
Pretty good. Good.
Some interesting discussions there, huh?
Yes,
Yeah.
that's fine.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I welcome you guys. I invite you guys to watch my shows during the week so you can hear what I have to say as I'm reading this throughout. Because you never know, I might bring one of these articles. Sometimes I go back and read them with you guys. Just because obviously I'm sometimes building a conversation without having the article there is a little bit harder to do. To go as long as we did, Um, I
Yeah.
might ask, well, what do you guys think of this? And you guys might give me a quick answer. But when we get into the gist and we get into the depth of this stuff, that can really spark some good conversations. So with that being said, I think it's a good time to start winding down, unless there was something else you guys wanted to bring up.
Nope.
That's what I can think of.
No, I'm good.
All right. So with that, we'll start to wind down, and what we'll do, of course, today we are in the weekend of March 25th and 26th of 2023. So why don't we go ahead and take a look back at this weekend in Nietzsche history, and I've got some I've got some pretty interesting stuff here to go on. One of them I was mentioning earlier was when we saw the reference to Momotaro. And that's going to be actually and this time we're going to be focusing more on, so on this weekend in Nietzsche history, take a look. So on this day, or on yesterday's day, on March 25th, 1943, 80 years ago yesterday, the Japanese propaganda film, Momotaro no Uiwashi, premiered in Japanese theaters. It was literally translated Momotaro's Sea Eagles. Running at 37 minutes, it was close. It was close to being feature length, but it was not the first animated film in Asia that honored. Okay, now Momotaro was used because Momotaro was a pretty. Momotaro is synonymous with Japanese culture as the three little pigs are. I'll get to that. But
Well, he's a Shinto myth, very, very old folklore. He's actually a hero. His name means peach son because Taro is like what you give to the end of the eldest son's name. And he came out of a peach to a couple who weren't going to have kids otherwise. And he was able to cut through a very big tree with just a small knife as a small child. And when he grew up, he and some animals went to an island and defeated some onis or demons in our culture. Very, very popular hero.
Yeah. So I'll just kind of read over the plot summary here real quick. The video opens aboard an aircraft carrier on tumultuous waters, with squadrons of monkeys, pheasants, and dogs preparing their planes for war. These animals are not the perfect soldiers. They act silly, giving them a very human feel. At the center stands Momotaro, stoic and heroic. Nice rhyme there. Giving orders. The animals board their planes and take into the sky. The flight to Hawaii is uninterrupted, save for a monkey helping a lost baby bird to find its parents. Animals arrive and the attack begins. The soldiers aboard the ships docked in Pearl Harbor panic and scramble, trying. So basically, this was a Japanese propaganda animated short or animated film. I guess depicting the Pearl Harbor attack from Japan's perspective. I'm going to skip over here to Momotaro Sea Eagles as propaganda, just to go over a little quick little bit here. The Japanese government used Momotaro as a hero because that story was and continues to be as well known to Japanese citizens as the Three Little Pigs is to Americans. In the film, Momotaro and the animals were cute and already known as heroic characters, and the, quote, pretty characters and comical battle scenes enabled Japanese citizens to watch a movie without hesitation, unquote. In other words, the film was entertaining to the masses. In addition, the original story had Momotaro and his companions traveling to a demon-inhabited island, hint, hint, Hawaii being, well, Hawaii was not part of the United States yet, obviously, but
yeah, it was a good analog to pick, even though, like, obviously the story predates them even knowing about America or America actually even being a thing at the time.
Right. Which this film replaced with the American-infested Hawaii, creating an easy link between foreigners and evil creatures. Now, of course, in Japanese culture, there's always been somewhat of a wariness of foreigners.
Yeah, they were isolationists.
They were an isolationist country until William Perry came along. But basically, there were a lot of wartime propaganda cartoons and anime. And obviously here anime for for the United States here.
Captain America.
Yeah. You just
I mean, it's a very good analog, though, right? Because like a lot of times when you're trying to charge a country or like a nation of people now, you actually try to make the enemy look pathetic, which I think is a bad idea. That's not going to rile people up. Be like, oh no, our army can already take care of them. But Oni in Shinto myth, like these things are powerful. They're basically ogres, right? So it's like, listen, if you don't send a hero and a squadron over here, these large ogres are just going to ravage the land, like, so there's some respect over the enemy in that case.
and part of the reason I'm doing this in this way, doing the history segment this way, you'll see in a moment, because on March 25th, 1943, Japan came out with a war propaganda animated feature. What do you guys think happened on March 26th, 1943?
Attack on Pearl Harbor?
No. So Japan comes out with a war propaganda film on March 25th, 1943. What do you guys think happened the next day?
The States reacts with their own?
No.
Okay. We obviously have no idea here. Except
Well,
for maybe
I'm about to show you, and I think I'm about to show you, and you may realize something pretty quickly here as soon as I pull it up.
I know what it is. Assuming we're talking about Komodorsky.
No, not exactly.
Oh, well, that happened on that day too.
On March 26th, 80 years ago today, Jungle Drums is the 15th of 17 animated Technicolor short films about the produced by famous studios. This one was a propaganda film that saw Superman fighting a caricature of Mr. Hitler.
Oh, see, I thought we were going to be talking about the Battle of the Komodorsky Islands, which happened on that same day.
Well, here's the plot of this one. Deep in the African jungle, a tribe of Aboriginal warriors are having a celebration. Their leader is a tall man in a white cloak. Secretly, he is a Nazi commander. And the tribe's sacred temple is actually an underground Nazi outpost. The Nazis eagerly await the arrival of an American convoy with information about an Allied attack. When a military plane flies overhead, the Nazis shoot it down. The commander sends the warriors in search of survivors. So, and then I'll just skip ahead here. Meanwhile, Kent and another pilot are flying out to meet the Lois's convoy. They spot the wrecked plane. Nazi. So basically, meanwhile in Berlin during a thunderstorm, Adolf Hitler listens to a news flash about the defeat of his U-boat force. Angered, he flips a switch on the radio and hangs his head in frustration as the tune "Praise the Lord" and "Passing Ammunition" is heard. So this was an American. I guess you could argue that this, albeit I don't think they actually were thinking of this at the time, but you could almost make somewhat of an assumption that this could have been in response to the one that we just read about.
Well, I would doubt that if it's coming up a day later, because this animation would have taken, although only running time of 8 minutes, I believe I saw,
Right.
It would have taken a few months at least to make. So
Right, but
It's just coincidence. I
right,
would say.
it's quite a coincidence. That's why I picked these two for the anime and animation portion of the show because it just seems so coincidental that one country does a war propaganda film that releases one country releases a war propaganda film one day, and then the very next day, an opposing country releases their own war propaganda film. It just seems very funny, coincidental.
Yeah, at best I could see maybe it was done and they released it, a, a a week earlier, a couple weeks earlier, something like
Yeah.
that.
But again, it's unlikely that there was any forethought put into that. It was just a very funny coincidence that I
Yeah.
picked up on. So, anyways, continuing on with this day in each history, as we do have a couple more pieces to go over here. As soon as I just remind myself. So now normally I do like both Saturdays versus both Sundays, but considering that, I felt it would be a better segue to do it more focusing on the year as opposed to chronological order of the years, as opposed to the
day.
yeah. So now on this date, 20 years ago today, 2003, the 65th issue of Usagi Yojimbo, which was a adaptation, I believe, of a manga from Japan by Dark Horse on their Maverick imprint, was published went on sale on newsstands on this day 20 years ago today, back in 2003. So on this day in 2003, 20 years ago today, the 65th issue of Usagi Yojimbo from Dark Horse went on sale on this date back in, and it was drawn by Stan Sakai. Now, Usagi Yojimbo, from what I understand, is a pretty well-known
Character, but I think he's maybe not so much in Japan, but probably more here in the States. He's associated with the Ninja Turtles.
Yeah, because of a crossover. A continuing one because he became a regular member on one of the programs. But he's actually based off of an older story about the Ronin Yojimbo, who was basically a samurai for hire who served nobody else. And they retold it in more of a kid-friendly way using a bunny, which is what Usagi stands for, is the word rabbit.
You guys continue talking about that. I'm going to turn on my light in here. If I go off camera.
Don't have much else to say about that. I just
that was just a quick story right there.
Yeah. So, Metal, what do you think of my rough draft for my campaign so far? I mean,
it looked all right.
You're a very honest person, so I.
Yeah. Well, I wasn't able to read any of it because the print was small, so I couldn't tell you as much on the text. But the artwork seemed nice.
Well, I mean, as long as the artwork is readable, it's
yeah. Definitely have them Star Wars vibes.
Yeah, I was trying to get straight to the point, really.
All right. So last but not least, we head to 2013. 10 years ago yesterday, as on yesterday's date, 10 years ago yesterday, WWE held its Monday Night Raw event from the Wells Fargo Center in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. The event saw, in the main event, AJ Lee defeat Caitlyn by countout in about 2 minutes. Had Ryback defeat 3 men, known as 3MB, Drew McIntyre, Heath Slater, Jinder Mahal in a 3-on-1 handicap match. Team Rhodes Scholar, Cody Rhodes and Damian Sandow, a.k.a. Aaron Steen is the current producer for the NWA right now, defeated Brodus Clay, a.k.a. current NWA World Champion Tyrus, and Tensai, formerly known as A-Train and his real name Matt Bloom, in a tag team match. You had the Shield of Dean Ambrose, currently AEW superstar Jon Moxley, with Roman Reigns and Seth Rollins defeating Justin Gabriel Great Khali and Zack Ryder, aka Matt Cardona, who looks like he might be returning to WWE, among other things. But those are some of the matches. I'm not going to read every because no title matches here, but read at least some of them. So on this date, on yesterday's date, 10 years ago, WWE held its Monday Night Raw event from the Wells Fargo Center in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. So there you go, guys. So how did you like the show tonight?
Good.
It was fun.
All right. So what we'll do as we close out here, we'll start with Rick and go, of course, counterclockwise. If you guys want to do your outros and share any links in the chat, just one last time here, go for it. Rick, we'll start with you.
Okay, well, I am Rick Piper of Cross Comics. I create comic books. You want to find me and know more about, come over to my YouTube channel and check me out on Tuesday nights at 10 o'clock.
All right, and feel free to share your link or links again, Rick, in the chat. All right, Metal, you're up.
Oh, I thought you said counterclockwise.
Oh wait, yeah, you're right. It is. I guess it is clockwise. I got confused.
Anyway, I'm the Metal, the creator of X Dynamis Chaos, and host of the Vomitorium Live. I guess if I'm going to share any link, since a lot of people don't have physical copies of the book, even though you can, I think if I recommend anything, people should pick up the physical print of episode 4 of X Dynamis Chaos over on Indie Planet. That's what I'll share.
All right, well, go ahead and share it. Go ahead and feel free to share your link, and of course, I'll highlight them here. So, all right, I just happen to get. All right, so there's Rick's link to his YouTube channel, and then here's Metal's link to his site for his comic. So
it's a good suggestion because you don't have to read literally anything before that chapter to get what's going on in that chapter. Or vice versa, even if you've read everything before that, it's probably not going to help you understand what's going on in that chapter.
I wonder what happened to Tim there because he just left.
Oh, it was time to promote.
Huh?
And it was his time to promote. I'm done.
Yeah. I'm sorry he left us.
He didn't have much to promote, so maybe that's why.
Well, he still could have. I mean, there's still
Yeah.
stuff he could have. I mean, just because he didn't have anything to promote doesn't mean that, or he still could have talked about something. I mean, just.
Yeah, if nothing else, you promote your Twitter. That way people can find it.
Anyways, well, with Tim going, I guess then it's my turn. So I hope to see everybody back here tomorrow night. We're on 6 nights a week. We have our panel show here with our panelists, the weekend edition, where we talk, of course, about the past week's news stories, whatever, catches our attention and all that. Monday to Thursday, I do a niche newscast where I go over articles as well, just more or less focusing on giving my own opinions on stuff that I read. So I hope you guys, of course, as well as those who watch this on replay, will try to catch some more of the live shows, and you can get some good conversations going in the chat as well about what we might discover. And on Fridays, of course, we have our historical comic retrospect. We're working our way through September 1939. This week, I will have RJ Carter from Critical Blast on with me as we will introduce everybody to Lev Gleason. And we'll be reading through Silver Streak Volume 1, Number 1. We'll be telling you about some of the early days of Lev Gleason. As RJ's told me before, Lev Gleason was also the company that first came out with a character called the Daredevil. Now, this is not the same Daredevil from Marvel Comics. This is a completely different character. But they have a character named Daredevil that predates the Marvel one. And
technically, anybody could probably create their own Daredevil character because Daredevil is that sort of word or phrase that
it's common parlance.
Yeah,
like Evel Knievel was a Daredevil.
Right.
Yeah.
Well,
hello, I'm back.
Yeah. What? Everything okay, Tim?
Oh no! Sometimes the internet goes out sometimes, and you have it like literally disconnects itself, and then you have to.
Reconnect. Yeah, I have had that problem before.
Well, I'm gonna finish up here, and then I'll give you a chance to do your outro, Rick. I'm sorry, Tim. Anyways, so I hope to catch everybody back here tomorrow night. And before we go, I want to give Tim a chance to do an outro, promote any links if he'd like. Put any links up in the chat if he'd like, or just do whatever, promote whatever you want there, Tim.
I have nothing to promote right now. I am working on the rough draft for the Melvin 3 campaign.
Well, I would suggest just promote your Twitter. That way, people, go to Twitter and find you there and know when you are doing
find
stuff.
me on Twitter under Timothy Lee Olson. There you go.
Well, if you want to share your Twitter link, you can do that too.
Oh, okay. Hold on. All right. There.
Oh wait, you didn't. You could have shared it in the regular chat.
Okay.
There, I can get it. I already have the link.
Oh, you already have it. Okay.
Yeah, there you go.
All right. Oh yeah, the metal put it in. So that's the link to Timothy's Twitter.
No, that's the link to the Indie Planet.
Yeah, you click the last one. You have to the one after that. There you go.
All right. You know, I can have my share of brain farts too, guys.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh well. I can do that.
Now I don't know about you, Rick, but when your internet starts acting funny, do all the cameras on StreamYard start doing that little swirly thing?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I've seen that before. I know what you're talking about too. All right, guys. Well, thank you all for being here, and I hope to see you guys back throughout the week. Come by, catch what I'm doing. Feel free to get conversations going in the chat as well. So with that, I thank everybody for being here, and we'll see you tomorrow. Bye.
It's only a day away.